Welcome to Section 1. This is the front page of the appraisal documentation. As you can see highlighted, it is where the appraisee enters their name and job title, and who will be their appraiser and their job title. It is important that both the appraisee and appraiser sign the documentation to make sure that both have agreed to what has been entered onto the form. The next stage of the form is to identify any previous year's objectives. The appraiser will work with the appraisee to identify how many objectives are set or were set within the last 12 months, if any. The objectives can be summarised into categories of achieved, not achieved, still in progress, which need to be carried forward over into Section 3 of the document, or if the objectives are no longer relevant. This area is a summary and should be discussed further in Section 2 of the documentation. Due to the nature of the form, it is important to identify any regular one-to-ones the appraisee has with their manager or appraiser. The document is a working document and should be reviewed and updated on a regular basis. The appraisee needs to think of the document as a success document or a formal personal development reflection document. It is the appraisee's responsibility to make sure all one-to-ones are recorded and outlined in this section. A brief description of any formal or informal meetings can be placed in this section. Further recording of these meetings can be chronicled in Section 2 of the document. It is important for the appraisee to understand about the vision and mission of the organisation. The appraisee needs awareness of the Trust's aims and key priorities. The knowledge and understanding of these aims and priorities will help the appraisee understand how they contribute to the overall vision of the organisation. This understanding will give meaning and satisfaction to the appraisee by identifying what needs to be achieved and how that achievement contributes to the success of the whole organisation. Aims and key priorities can be entered into the left section highlighted, whilst goals and objectives set by the division or department or team should be located in the middle section, which is highlighted. It is also important that the appraisee is aware of the importance of the Trust values and behaviours. The 6 values are clearly identified in the column to the right, and a brief description of the language used to meet them is visible. Values and behaviours form the culture of the organisation, the way we do things around here, and often determine how ethically we achieve our goals and objectives. Later in the session, we'll be talking about the equalities and diversity objectives. These must be adhered to in order for everyone to have an inclusive approach to work. More information on the key priorities and strategic aims of the Trust can be found on the appraisal page on StaffNet, the organisational homepage. So let me show you how to find them. What you'll need to do is you'll need to go to StaffNet. There you'll see popular links. You'll need to go to the Trust appraisal process. You'll need to click on the hyperlink, and that will take you to the appraisal page. What you need to do is you need to scroll down, and there you'll see the new key priorities and operational plan for 2016-17. Section 2 should consist of the yearly reflections and achievements of the appraisee. The appraiser should encourage regular reflection time to establish what has gone well and the reasons for this. On reflection of success, the appraisee should also contemplate what hasn't gone so well, identifying the reasons for this and developing solutions for the next 12 months. Solutions should be the primary focus of this document, identifying any development areas that need to be put in place in order for the following year to be more successful. Through appreciative inquiry, the appraisee and appraiser should reflect over the past 12 months and focus their attention on the positive aspects of the work achieved and to seek understanding on how to achieve even greater results moving forward. A good way of establishing this rapport is to ask open and probing questions to create a deeper understanding of the contributions made by the appraisee in their role, and how these contributions relate to the wider goals of the team. It is also recommended that the appraisee uses feedback from their peers and colleagues to establish credibility in their responses. It is always beneficial to use the team as a benchmark when thinking about the values and behaviours. For example, the appraiser should use probing and open questions such as, Tell me about a time when the team has shown consideration to one another, and how have you contributed to the consideration shown? If the areas identified need development, a good open question would be, what could be improved, i.e. the solution, and how can the appraisee contribute to that solution, i.e. the action? The appraisee should be encouraged to think team-wide and establish how they fit into the team. The appraisee should also think positively about how they contribute to the successes of the team. The appraisee should reflect on how they can develop further and identify any lessons learned that may have hindered these successes to greatly enhance these contributions for the next 12 months. The document is important as to provide a record of contributions made throughout the year and can act as a motivational tool to refuel the appraisee for the next 12 months. The appraiser must inform the appraisee of any individual consequences if the paperwork is not completed, and inform them of the importance of the appraisal to themselves, to the team, and also to the overall organisation. The appraiser is responsible in providing clear and robust expectations to adhere to for the year. It is up to the appraisee to establish when and how they will go about filling out the documentation. Section 2b. This second page in Section 2 summarises the areas identified for improvement. This section is to be completed by both the appraisee and appraiser. A formal discussion should take place in the appraisal, reviewing all achievements and lessons learned throughout the year and identifying the key areas for improvement. When solutions are found, these should be documented in the next steps section. Areas identified should be led by the appraisee and facilitated through open and closed questions by the appraiser. It is always important to note timescales of any next steps or actions, as this will generate motivation and empowerment towards the actions. As you can see below, this is the area to record mandatory training and medical device training compliance. The appraiser has responsibility to inform the appraisee of any non-compliance. However, it is up to the appraisee to make sure that they are compliant within the given timescales to avoid non-compliance reminders and reprimands. If the appraisee is a registered nurse or midwifery staff, they will need to complete the sections highlighted to meet compliance with revalidation. Please refer to the Nursing and Midwifery Revalidation Policy. Let's move on now to Section 3. Welcome to Section 3, Objective Setting. This section should be mutually discussed and agreed during the appraisal. In column 1, the appraiser needs to note the department's, directorate's or division's aims and key priorities. If your department or area does not have specific aims and priorities, please use the Key Priorities and Operational Plan document. These aims and priorities should be the overall purpose and focus of the department, directorate or division, and will determine what your energies will be focusing on in the coming 12 months. General terminology for aims and priorities consists of improving, developing or providing. Examples would be to provide excellent patient care or improving clinical quality. Within column 2, the appraiser needs to think about how their team will deliver these aims and priorities and what impact they want the appraisee and their team members to achieve together. Goals terminology generally consists of increase or decrease. For example, the team wants to increase productivity and efficiency whilst decreasing patient complaints. These goals would need to link in with the area's aims or key priorities. For example, to improve clinical quality. In the third column, make a note of what specifically needs to be done to achieve these goals. These are called task objectives. They should be SMART, meaning specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, and time-bound. Task objectives should provide even greater clarity for the appraiser and appraisee. The appraiser should encourage involvement in decision-making and prompt the appraisee to think about how they will contribute to the overall team goals. Task objectives are measurable actions that the appraisee needs to do in order to achieve the team goals, and should be mutually agreed and set within a realistic and achievable time frame. In column 4, the support and feedback section, the appraiser and appraisee should discuss together what support and feedback is needed to achieve these task objectives. Timely and constructive feedback is key to any team working together that aims to grow and achieve and perform at their best. Both will need to agree on the supporting mechanisms in order for the objectives to be signed off. The fifth and final column has been designed to help the appraisee and appraiser understand and clarify how the delivery of the work is communicated and achieved. The appraiser and appraisee can use the Values and Behaviours framework to talk about how they will conduct themselves in their tasks and discuss how to garner influence with others in order to meet the needs of our diverse population and internal colleagues. It is important that we share feedback on the organisation's values and behaviours and align our own values with others. This way we can hold each other to account and dissolve conflict before they arise. Let's move on now to the Equalities and Diversity objective. This section highlights the Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion objective. It has been agreed that every member of staff should have at least one Equality, Diversity and Inclusion objective. The vision of Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Department is valuing the voices of our diverse people to be the best we can. By people, they mean our staff, patients, carers, visitors, the Governor's Board, directors, volunteers and the communities we serve. To deliver the vision, we must aim to be accessible to all, we must have listened and responded to all our people, we must have benefited from the diverse skills and knowledge of our people, and we need to work in partnership. A detailed analysis of objectives written will determine if these objectives meet all the criteria outlined, and if they do not. If they do not, then what solutions can the appraisee and appraiser think of? You can record your Qualities and Diversity objective in this section. For example, in my objective to look at patient complaints, I will look to see if any groups, e.g. people with disabilities, are complaining more or have different complaints. So let's now move on to section 4. Learning and Development. Section 4. Learning and Development. Learning and development needs should initially be considered to support the objectives that have been set for the coming year. The following are learning solutions that can aid the appraisee in development. These are highlighted. It is always encouraged to think of learning and development at a team need. Does the development serve the purpose of the objective and goals being written for that area? If there are any costs associated to any development highlighted, alternative solutions need to be considered before any further agreement has been made. The appraisee and appraiser need to consider all options of development and benchmark it on the needs of the team to establish its validity. Finally, the form gives both the appraisee and appraiser an opportunity to write any additional information that hasn't been discussed in the previous sections. These sections are there for the appraisee and appraiser to make any comments, reflections, or to write narrative relating to the previous or coming 12 months, and to note their thinking and feelings on how the appraisal was conducted. These sections can be used as an overall summary of where the appraiser and appraisee think that the appraisee is heading within their career. Remember, once the appraisal is over, depending on your divisional process, the appraisal should be recorded on the Oracle Learning Management System, OLM, as soon as possible. We have come to the end of this screencast, and I hope you find this guide useful. If you require more support regarding appraisal, such as having meaningful conversations or how to motivate and engage individuals, and to write smart objectives, come along to one of Organisational Development's appraisal sessions. You can book on to one of these sessions through your local OLM user located in your area. The Organisational Development team and I wish you well in your next appraisal session. Thank you for watching.